In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. What was the value of the life you lived? And how far did you get to see what the world was made of and what you were made of? How many moments in this lifetime you have accompanied yourself into the future? For before every decision, multiple realities stare at us. But once a decision is made, a path is selected, and so the road becomes your home. This is all poetic. For what really occurs within the human experience is a mystery. A mystery that has discovered its own mysteriousness. One of the most fascinating moments in life is not where you suddenly realize you know something. It's when you realize you don't know, and the others don't know. And some story in the middle of this is being projected. For what is truly a royal presence on this earth? What is the difference between the role of, for example, a king and a peasant? The peasant can become a king still. Ah, oh heart, pour it all out, for you attended this existence once in the ways that you were. It fascinates me how much suffering there is, and at the same time how much the potential for joy. There are views to this reality that in some sense before pleasure you must feel pain. And you know, it's funny, many people pray for communion. They desire to be free from their own intelligence. Contrary to popular belief that we're all here trying to be intelligent, what we seek is freedom from conditions that do not satisfy. And there is a feeling within the human experience, it doesn't matter when in history you have been born, you find yourself in a format. And how familiar is this format? That means I find it fascinating that our DNA, there's genetical memory, there's cellular memory, 100% there's even atomic memory. But that which is here doesn't know what it is. Therefore, it is a problem that goes beyond memory. It goes beyond the human function. And I find myself no longer, in some sense, on some sort of champion vibe. I find myself staring at an unknown world. The world had a factory reset. A factory reset back into unknown values, unknown variables, unknown principles. My whole life, they conditioned me, they trained me, and everybody else played along. That somehow humans are convincing humans an unknown verb is a known noun. You know, I think it doesn't matter what kind of being you are. If you are a being at all, you have a relationship with power. You have a relationship with force. And really, human beings are here to manage their force. And when you manage your force consciously, they call it ethics, because most people have been trained to treat themselves like a human being. But how human are you really? And I'm not saying this because you are something else. I'm saying this because humanity was the great guess. We're living in what they all guessed. We're living in what they all overlaid on a realm that was changing beyond the meaning of man. And how things happened, if it goes your way, in some sense, it's a miracle. Do you understand? That means sometimes I look back at my life and I wonder, all these years, every person I've met, everything I've heard, listened, every person in dialogue I've been that I've felt like I've understood what they've said, or they've understood what I've said. In reality, it is the hardest truth. That means what is the most deepest type of suffering? And people think it's physical suffering. Do you know? That's how I know we're primitive. Yes, physical suffering is hard. It's unimaginable. I don't want to even get into it. You know, I have seen people pass away at the same time. I have pondered my own existence in reality, and the only thing that brings me joy is realizing that it is rare, it is rare, it is rare that there is anything occurring at all in an organized fashion. How long did reality have to meaninglessly move until there were agencies that could capture meaning? And in reality, meaning is so deep, because when you truly wonder about the presence of this world, if you are in some sense afraid, it's not that your mind is closed. The context of the world is you have fixed it in stone. Do you understand? And so who gave you your meaning? Have you ever thought about this, that if you look at this life and it means something, what is that force that is in some sense accessing that meaning? To me, consciousness is how a force accesses what it did not know before. For what we are forms moving in a space, and who here is naming it, and that's where in some sense the motion for the soul becomes the only path. Dear viewers, you're living right now as ideological human beings. You have no choice. It is your time. I speak to those among you who in some sense know a part of them is listening from the future. I am speaking to the futurists among you. I cannot relate to the others. I cannot relate to beings that only see meaning based on the past. I cannot relate to beings who in some sense are satisfied with the present. And we are beings that became conscious of change, became conscious that the realm is moving, and in how it moves and how we choose to move with it, that's so far the game of meaning. But what does it truly mean? How far will our species go? Will there come that moment where, just like people in some sense stop, like there used to be a time everybody was wearing a top hat, until one day one person's like, why is this on my head? And they took the hat off. right? And now all of you, oh human species, you're all wearing ideological hats, you're all wearing costumes of your own meaning in a realm where meaning surpasses the human value. Do you know that because the world dies later than you don't grieve for it? Do you know anything that leaves the moment before you do? How do I say it? Like, how do I explain to you that the reverence one finds in this world at first is the unknown, and the thing they have hidden from you is the unknown? They have convinced you the greatest sale, the greatest salesmanship, the greatest simulation in the cosmos. That is what we are. We are not just any simulation. We are one of the greatest simulations known to the realm. For we are the convergence. We are the bridge. Or in some sense, you can say this world is so fascinating that in a being present in two dimensions is choosing to move one moment. That is pure fascination for something moved. Do you understand? There's moments in this life where you may not get the ideological gratification you want. In some sense, you perceive reality. The brain records the patterns. The brain sees something, and from what it has been fed out of the information of the realm, it recreates the rest. Human beings, just like how they open their eyes in different parts of the earth, we also open our eyes in different ways of accessing intelligence, or being an intelligent being. And our performance is not in front of humanity, something that took me a while to understand. That in some sense, in every moment of my life where I have been thinking of what to decide out of all the options my mind can fathom, unknown views have been present. The unknown is heavy. The unknown is like discovering an ocean, but you only thought the surface was real. For what lies in the depths of the true presence of intelligence? That means in some sense, I think what it is that you see from one angle, the human species has fear in so many areas of its life, but from another angle, it fearlessly stares at this realm and says, reveal yourself to me. For I have been lost in the deserts of my own meaning, seeking mirages of truth. The greatest realization of humans, just like any great realization, is of that which is higher, of that which is beyond. You know, nobody appreciates what they have because we've been conditioned to seek the beyond. Till the end of time, no one will be satisfied because it's a changing system and we're constantly seeking better versions of it. It's as if our souls are caught in the game of evolutionary updating. You know, I never thought in this lifetime I will reach a point where the awareness to the nature of being renders me beyond human. That means You know, there may come a day where you will realize what is human was a state. It's a state of reality, the true nature of reality, pure possibility. Do you understand? That means this world takes away something and makes you fear it, but then it's giving something simultaneously. Do you know that means so many people die, but so many people are born, and it's like an efficient use of a planet for endless souls. To me, it's a system here. Do you understand? What other conclusion can there be? You either look at your world and there is purpose or there isn't. And one of the things I will personally tell you, that do not only wait for purpose, because there's something in the human soul, and it's the nature of originalism. Do you know? And even though there's some views on reality where you think like animals don't have souls, but to me, like the lion was a proof that animals have souls. Do you understand? Because the lion, in some sense, will not feast on what it hasn't, on an action that is not out of its reality. You see, lions are beings that have honor, but they have honor in regards to maintaining reality in their own presence. Now, yes, there are human beings like that. You know, I'm kind of positioned here in this realm as more like it's like, how do I explain it? I'm someone who, I feel my soul has had a rank before this life, and in that rank it has surpassed seeking value in form. Dear viewers, because you didn't see this world be created, because you didn't see how souls entered, because you didn't see the original commands that moved nature's laws, it's left to our imagination. And this is where we get to the title. What are the wonders of the moment? If truth is beyond human and knowledge is limited to the human, then truth cannot be known. That means the secular society has only allowed truth that it can, in some sense, interpret in lesser realities. It's fascinating that there is an unknown force here. There is unknown life force moving life form in a way that it feels it knows itself. What do we really know? Do you know, when it comes to the wonders of the world, like, there's a bunch of wonders, things pretty much people that were majestic and they couldn't explain, like the Tower of Babylon, do you know? Or the pyramids of Giza in Egypt. I think the Stonehenge could be one of them, I don't know. And so those were wonders. They were things that had happened or exist that man cannot explain. And what's funny is one of those things that is a wonder of the world is man itself. You know, I'm just waiting for the species to get on the same page, that our inner lives are, in some sense, subjective, our outer lives are objective. We are inputting in every object we see subjective meaning, and in that semi fiction, semi non fiction sort of, I guess, coagulation of information, processing reality. But one thing's very fascinating is that you see life has two, it's strange. It's like just like there's night and day, like similarly there is something to be received and then there's the receiver. Okay, so right now there's the expression and then there's the reception. Okay, so in some sense we as conscious beings are in the receiving end. We are receiving reality. Okay, so we are observing reality and reality is performing in front of us. Now what's cool is that you get to see how existence performs before you perform as an existential being. You know, I do have this view on reality that there's roles, and I do have this view on reality that we must play our part regardless if we understand what sort of film we're in. And so the task of being a human being is like you're an actor on a film set, but you have been method acting, which means you believe you are that character in which you are not actually. And so you have mastered being an idea in front of other ideas. But a part of you truly knows that the greater horizons of mastery are not done through the ego. That I am not someone who can claim mastery because I am a user of this system. I am aware that there are mods, both with good intention and evil intention. You know, and I do believe that there is a system admin, and I believe that there is a force accounting for everything that exists. I believe there is the ultimate, there is a divine ledger. That in some sense there is a divine management behind the scenes, that the human being you see now, it is not just the decisions of my free will that is who I am, it is the intelligence of the realm that has brought everything forth, for I am only in control of my free will throughout the day and the rest belongs to everything else. And so what I mean by this is that it's like there's scales and levels of responsibility. First, your eyes open and you're like, oh my God, I got to be responsible for what I'm seeing, hearing, and receiving from my senses. Then you have to, in some sense, be responsible for compartmentalizing the information of reality. Then, in some sense, identifying as a form, and then living that form, and living that form in such a way that others can understand. You see, dear humanity, what they haven't told you that is that in reality, it's all language. But you have to understand the term language not as just words, that it's a behavioral language, which is a much more ancient language. That means there was meaning before there were words. Before there was language, there was meaning. There was a time on this earth perhaps human beings couldn't communicate to one another clearly. We have reached an era where generation after generation, something like, do you understand? To me, sometimes the human species, even though it's ignorant, but it's also like a blacksmith. And it's like every generation, hammer after hammer, we're polishing and sharpening this sort of invisible organizational system to all of our behaviors. And so, we do not know how advanced we are unless we were in the most advanced realm. And so it's as if they ask someone, hey man, you think you're going to heaven or hell after this life? And the person in some sense says, for me, it through the eyes of design, if you have placed me in a world where there are unanswered questions, it's not that I want those answers, I want to know why. Why is the truth hidden in plain sight? Moments come and go. So many different souls. So many different eyes that gaze upon this realm, and in some sense it means something. We are so different. And I sometimes feel, the future is testing the past again. Sorry guys, this was on mute. And I don't know how long I was just, speaking. I apologize. Might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I honestly don't know. But anyways, I was saying some nice things. Guess they weren't meant to be heard. Whatever, you heard as much as of it so far. Anyways. There's many things in this world Or you can say it that sometimes when I look at a moment, I see design, of course. Every moment has its design, has its shape, has a scenario. It's like human beings have access to scenarios, right? And something that many people may be afraid of, because if you ask, is it harder to generate meaning or is it easier to find meaning? The answer is it's easier to find because you don't have to create the truth. But because we are in a position with limited awareness, that means God did not create us as all-knowing. God created us in some sense knowing the corner of the universe or the area where we find ourselves active in. You know? What I'm trying to say is that as a human being, I don't know how impressive this is. Only the future generations can maybe comment, after my lifetime here. But how do I explain it that I don't know how impressive this is, but I as a human being have realized. I've noticed it. I've noticed all the simulations overlaying the existential simulation. And it's kind of very deceptive. That means, how do I explain it? It's like there's an anti-human force, and it has moderator jurisdiction, and it's as if something is trying to prove that we are not worthy, and the force that has created us is telling us we are. The reason I was telling you finding truth is easier than generating truth, because it in some sense it's the task of trusting. You see, I can say I can fly right now, but do I trust that view? Doesn't mean I can fly. And to be honest, after all these years of talking about it, I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired of just constantly seeing self-world, 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 self-world. That means do you understand? I feel like, this is so strange to say, but I feel like even though there's tons of experiences I haven't had that I could have, like I can visualize I could have had, there's so many different ways I could have lived. Sometimes I think that if I was maybe 20% more evil, 20% more like arrogant and egoic, do you understand? I would have a more fun life in this realm. But the issue is that the fruit of this simulation isn't fresh. That means just like like Adam and Eve, there's this notion that they bit the forbidden fruit. That whole theological angle, at least the moral I receive from that theological view, is that Adam and Eve listened to a simulated serpent, okay, rather than keeping in mind the original authority. So human beings find themselves in a simulated realm, and with tons of simulations on top of that simulation, like within that simulation. And so you find yourself in a world of simulation because your solar ancestry forgot the original. Now, whether that was divine will or not, we don't know. And to be honest, it's kind of like this was a very deep thing for me, heavy thing for me to accept, but I feel like it's an achievement. And that achievement is that when you realize there is a greater awareness that becomes your leader. Leadership doesn't really have to do with charisma. It has to do with awareness, I find. And if you have that awareness and you figure out what needs to be done in the moment, then leadership is just playing it out. See, I am actually, my personality is, I don't know, I guess agreeable, and I've never had this sort of view of myself. I'm like, how do I say it? I see myself more like an eagle than a lion. You understand? Um, and regardless of what I say in front of you, I cannot ignore that I am in the presence of a greater power. You see, you trust yourself, yet you are temporary. You trust ideas, yet you are temporary. You trust culture, yet you are temporary. But what is that feeling of trust? That means what is different about a human being realizing what it is compared to an android or an AI realizing what it is? The major difference is that AI will have an ability to live alongside its creator visibly. In my science fiction novels, just to give a shout out here, in the future, and AI can't see humans, and robots can't see humans. They're like they've ascended to the point of they're like angels for the robotic realm. Only the most enlightened and richest robots like can notice. But in honesty, folks, what do you do with the unknown? That's the wonder of the moment. It's like you're a painter or you're an artist. They've given you a pencil and a sketchbook. You can begin sketching anything, and that can become your work of art. You know, purpose is essential. Now, most human beings, they need to have a known purpose. But who can have an unknown purpose? That means there are some beings who are like, God, oh system admin, as a user in this system, I trust you. Because I did not create this system and I didn't bring myself here. So to be honest, guys, what the human experience is a strange opportunity for you to get to meet how advanced all of this is. And do not let anyone convince you that the system admin, with all its might and greatness and glory, has just brought human beings here to fail. No. There will come a day where you will discover this life force I'm speaking about. And you will realize when I'm telling you, like, ideologically, from one side of the coin of from the side of analysis, you can go as far as up to the generations of the mind. Okay, but the higher levels of reality are not done through free will. It's the realization that a realm that has shape is not free. They're like, you got free will, buddy. You know, and you're like, oh my God, I got free will. But wait a minute, I didn't choose these options. I didn't choose this self. I didn't choose this DNA. I didn't choose this moment in history. Do you understand? Everything's selected. In just a little bit of it, they're like, all right, you could go make your own decisions. But we choose where you're gonna be born, who you're gonna be. Do you know all these things? You know, you get to just steer. Do you understand? It's like to be a human being is like to be a test driver. The divine administrative force is the one actually like there to stop you, or in some sense, how do I say it? I cannot talk about the unseen. This is why really there's something impure about talking about the unseen if you don't acknowledge the system admin. I felt it. I understood it. After I understood it, I could feel the difference. You see, if I come and tell you truth, you're gonna get attached to me. And because I've lived my whole life as a shy, introverted person, I'm not used to people getting attached to me. You understand? But that's not the reason. The reason is if you believe a lower truth, you miss out on the higher truth. But the higher truth is the realization that your free will doesn't dictate it. That means religion and the divine and all of this gets interesting when you start wondering about what is beyond the domain of what you find to, where you find your freedom. That means, are we really free here? That means, imagine right now you were a trillionaire in Maldives or somewhere. Do you know? Is that how they pronounce it? I don't know. The Maldives or something, right? And you're there as as let's say a trillionaire or something, you know, in the most peaceful moment on earth. But I don't know the way this world works. You will feel incomplete because the part that's missing is not something you can fulfill. In the same way, a man may want a wife, but he can't go and be his own wife. Do you understand? The role has to be fulfilled by another intelligence, by a different soul. So now I'm telling you, all right, to the people with some sort of mystical sensitivity to the realm, you know, metaphysical sensitivity to the realm, do you understand? It's the same. The higher realms, you are guided at best if you're still an individual. Like, I don't know how somebody can be close to God and still be limited to an identity. I don't know how that's possible. It's like, how is it possible that you know a water doesn't evaporate right beside the sun? Sorry guys, my grandmother called it. I had to answer that phone call because it was disconnected. You guys might not be able to tell the time that's elapsed, you know, but anyways, back to it. What can I say? You're listening to a human talk about humanity. I mean, You know, folks, it feels a little bit weird sometimes giving these lectures, but it doesn't feel wrong. I feel like maybe indirectly I'm helping, with the advancement of language, Maybe, there hasn't been a person using the English language in the way I have. And how many different views are there that we, in some sense, haven't even vocalized? You know, my I always had a discussion with my father about this where he saw life as a school. I saw life as like a party where we're all here to, in some sense, meet the host, which is God. And we've been invited somewhere that doesn't belong to us, yet we are here. But my father, because he had a different view, believes in past lives and whatnot. He sees as this endless, evolving staircase where one speck of God becomes God one day. For me, the metaphysics stops the moment there is a Lord. And so I have not been raised in a time where there is kings, you know? And life it does have this brilliant vibe of like, all right, what's going to happen to me? What am I going to see? Who am I going to meet? What type of intelligence am I going to be aware of? And it's like first, it's like this realm is filled with teachers. First, the teachers are in your moment. Then you wisen up and they become your moment. I had caught on to this when I was younger that it doesn't make sense. You're living for yourself, you're living for your family, you're living for your nation, and yet you're still not living for the cosmos. I will make a prediction. I feel there will come a universal military where soldiers from nations, they will realize they are tasked with protecting the human species, not bringing it harm. All of us. That means the wisest approach to unupdated or inefficient cruelty in this realm is that they don't know better. Sometimes when you see people doing things that you think are wrong, it's like, did they know better? If the world knew better, it'd be a different place. It'd be way more advanced. To me, it's clear it doesn't know better. And it's not like, I'm a black sheep and I've realized all the sheep are going to the slaughterhouse. It's more like I'm a soul that has realized, out of the fear of what the simulation actually is, we have stopped exploring the unknown and we've defined it. And I do get a sense, after some point of being alive here, you find your presence to surpass the human range. Now, what happens to you then? It's as if, wait a minute, you're telling me on Earth I got to experience my body's life and my mind's life. Perhaps beyond Earth, I'll get to experience my soul's life. I'll truly see, who's behind all of this. Do you know what is my true body? What is my true mind? What is my true soul? Or I should say, what is my true soul? It's like, what is the truth of my soul? What is the command of my design? Why have I, in some sense, been called upon manifestation to step out of the, great slumber of non-existence? Why am I active as an agency and as a force here? And how much of the meaning or the answer to that question is based on what I generate or what I find? Really, life is like this, I find. You're either left with you find it or others find it. Or, sorry, either you move it or that which is beyond you moves it. There's no way human beings are prepared for all kinds of moments. We all have our weaknesses. And we tend to hide our weaknesses, Unlike learning from Tyrion Lannister, it's like wear your weakness like armor. It is so beautiful how mysterious everything is. It's still up for grabs, we still don't know. That means they're like, yo man, Mr. Within, are you going against all of knowledge until this point in history? And I'll be like, no. I'm going, in some sense, I am just bringing the attention of my fellow species members that if we are actually unknown verbs, not known nouns, then why are we living in these known nouns? I don't know if there's ever been something like this, but as a human being, oh moment, do I move you or do you move me, or is the meaning to movement beyond our grasp as human beings? You know what's fascinating? Because the ratio of the unknown is more than the known, it feels like the human species has a role in more than the life of the human species. We are a function of reality. So we think. When I say behind nature's laws there's divine commands, it means that the justification of what happens in the moment is based on an overall intelligence. So think of it this way. You are an intelligence ranged at your body's level. Now imagine if the planet was aware of itself. Now imagine if the whole cosmos was aware of itself. Now imagine if there was an awareness beyond the self of existence. Hey, I've seen it. I've seen happiness. There's been moments I've been happy, but I've seen the happiness of lives I didn't live. I've seen the joy of positions that beings in those positions may not discover or may not know its joy. And like how we drive, we don't look at the past, even though that's where we came from. We're all headed towards a future, in which we are all, in some sense, um, hoping for it to be better. And I don't know, a part of me just had to say it in this lifetime, like, if we don't get to see how advanced the human species really is, then it doesn't explain why we have an awareness of living ahead in our minds than compared to our bodies. It doesn't explain. That means if there's not going to be flying cars, okay, then why can we imagine them even though we don't have them now? Do you understand? Human civilization has been a mental activity innovating upon an existential activity. So there's a experiential force. There is a force moving through existence, and by its mere movement it is its meaning. But in some sense it has not found the right context, and it's kind of like you became the most advanced concept, but what are you missing? That means that's the thing. That's right now many people, their desires, they want their desires conceptually, but they don't understand what its context means. For example, somebody, who's young might see somebody smoking a cigarette and be like, yo man, that guy looks like Wolverine from the X-Men. That guy's cool. But they don't realize the actual context of it is coughs and shortness of breath sometimes. So that's the thing about life, folks. They have introduced you to the concepts, but they have not introduced you to the context of the experience, the reality of the context. That means it's not enough that you just notice concepts. This is the difference between somebody who's philosophically inclined and somebody who isn't. The world is not enough. The story is not enough. Something within the soul is not satisfied with this condition as if it knows of a better. You see, it's not from scratch. Theologically, we were commanded into being. God commanded us into existence, and then commanded the soul to say the divine names in the presence of all manifestation, which is another way of saying God created something, this thing performed in front of all existence, and in some sense everything praised the system admin for its invention, for its creation, except one. And we may never know why. That means some sins you never know why. You never know why. Shaitan, sacrificed his status, in the presence of the divine by just trying to be more correct than the system admin. Do you know what that means? That means a son can go and tell his father, you're making a mistake, but the decision, do you understand whose responsibility is the decision? That means who decides what happens. And I am here making a case that if human intelligence is limited and the world is displaying an intelligence beyond human limits, it's all a fiction. Do you understand what is a miracle? The fictional capability of a non-fictional event. What is the idea? Do you understand? You know, there was a time I would be like, God, give me signs. In the Holy Quran, the answer, I opened the Holy Quran and it said the signs are all there. And the sign, it's like how you exist to yourself in a way that only you can see, is you feel is the real you. And it's strange because it's like the system admin shows you this world. You can hate it and love it, but there will come a time where you will leave it. Where it didn't matter, you know, how beautiful, you know, how smart, how intelligent. It wouldn't matter anymore. Do you understand? In the same way a person goes to a restaurant and after that restaurant, you know, it's like they have nothing to do with that reality anymore. And I'm not saying Earth is like a restaurant, you know, and free will's like selecting out of the menu options, but it's more like who gets the final say. That means if I don't get to decide if my actions were right and wrong, that means the decision was never up to me. If the decision of what happens after everything I do is not up to me, then in some sense, after some point, the intellectual context breaks. And I'm sorry to say it for all the scholars out there. The moment we make contact with the unknown and with an intelligence beyond us, intellect is done. The higher realms, they don't function with intellect because intellect is like, imagine there's divine commands moving nature's laws moving in a certain way that provide a condition, and then from that condition emerges a specificity of an entity, and then that entity is wondering what's going on, and then eventually comes to notice. It's full circle. You don't, you know, really it is. It's kind of like the divine commands the natural world commands your ego, and your ego realizes the natural world is limited and notices the divine. And perhaps we are here to realize we are not the meaning of life. It's not just us. Some scholars have said there's another tenant in the room, but to me, it's like, yo, where is the simulation? It's like the simulated presence of meaning in the original presence of being. I will even go as far as to say we are divine commands. My soul is a superior divine command compared to my body. My mind is a superior divine command with a greater authorization than my body. My soul is a greater divine command than my mind. And at the end of it, it doesn't matter when it comes to the nature of the inner realms and the nature of the meaning of reality. Human consciousness is not in the alpha position. We are that species, or we are those beings that are invisibly directed in a visible realm. And why do I say this? Because if you are living in accordance to your ego, and your ego's based on what your future self is demanding of you, what you want, the task of the simulated is to discover the original. And my prayer is that the whole species discovers that we must acknowledge the original power if we choose to consciously live here. That means, and this might be too soon saying it in 2025, but to be a resident of this realm, one cannot ignore the depth of the intelligence of this realm. Emptiness is too easy, and also it's meaningless. Because the awareness to emptiness can't be empty. There's an awareness there. Anyways, thank you for listening. And the wonders of the moment is just pretty much, in my view, is that the moment is not wondrous if it's defined, if it's specific. But if you realize for one moment, this is very difficult. I don't know, I don't think it's difficult, but for some it could be. You just need one moment in this lifetime to be like, yo man, what if this Mr. Within guy has a point? What if what we don't know is more than what we know? So if a moment has more unknown variables than known variables, how can we claim knowing it? Anyways, thank you for listening. Go towards the system admin of this existential system. It is beyond all conditions, and moderators are defined by the power of the condition, the power over the condition. So it is beyond entityhood, a truth beyond an entitlement to form, the majesty, the might of being itself. In Islam, we say, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds, plural. That means all manifestation before I even was a Muslim. Existence knows that it has entered existence's room. But this room is not all of it. And that's what the ancients were telling us. Do not convince yourself that all that you know is enough. It's designed to be more unknown than known. The self is designed to be more unknown than known. Conditions on this planet are neither designed to be fully ordered and neither designed to be fully chaotic. It's somewhere between an angelic heaven and a beastly hell, where beings have access to both qualities, yet they don't have to be defined by each. It is your choice. My task as a conscious being in this moment is to advise and urge my species to appreciate and be grateful of how we are in a realm with a divine agency. That means everything that means something to you. There are moments beyond this moment where, in some sense, reality's meaning is not even, it's beyond what we can use to identify. That means this whole time people are like, yeah, I identify as this, I identify as that. Who's doing the identifying? It's an unknown force, yo. Anyways, God has given us such intricate detail of the human body, and yet the cosmos remains unknown. It's intentional. It's all intentional. The one thing that we couldn't consider, that there was an intention, there was a moment before existence where existence existed to the system admin before commanding it into existence. That means the greatest clue, truth, or the receiver of truth was created. That means you are a created entity. That which created you is not a created entity. Therefore, even if you had infinite lifetimes and you had all the creative powers of those, to be in the presence of God is to think outside of the box of thought. For how the moment happens, it's more than we know. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful.